Hello, let's get metaphysical. My name is Karen Vossler, and I'm an astrologer and a massage therapist in the Cincinnati area. And today I'm happy to have with me on my program Linda Goodman, who's the renowned and famous author of Star Signs, Sun Signs, Love Signs, and her new book, Gooberts. And so, welcome, Linda. And
Thank you.
today I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about astrology. We already had one episode and we talked about general subjects, and so today I'd like to talk more about astrology. Tell me, how do you feel about the planets? Do they make things happen in your life, or do you have choice? Is there free will?
Yes, free will is the greatest gift we have from our mother and father who art in heaven. But you have no free will whatsoever on this level. You only have free will when you tune into your higher self. And the electromagnetic forces from the planets control material matter, you, your body, your environment, but they have absolutely no control over the higher self. So the way to get free will is to tune into your higher self, because you have no free will on this level whatsoever.
In other words, to be centered and to be here now.
Right, the eternal now. Astrology is like, it was set up, the planets were zapped, shall we say, with electromagnetic force of different kinds by Isis and Hermes Thoth. And the reason will be in the sequel to my book Goobers called 12th Night Secrets. It had to do with the separation of twin selves in the beginning. When Set, aka Satan, murdered his brother Osiris and cut him into 14 pieces, all souls were split to two halves. And so Isis and Hermes Thoth imbued the planets with this power to keep people in what you might say a karmic playpen, to work out your karma and not have as much splitting off. Mm-hmm. And so that's what astrology is. It's like a karmic playpen. And if you compare it like, and that's the macrocosm and we're the microcosm, it's like a baby, using an analogy. When the baby is going to hurt itself and you want it to learn certain, it stays in the playpen. When the baby matures, it gets out of the playpen and has the freedom to run around the house. When the spirit matures, it can come out of the karmic playpen of astrology and have the freedom to do what it wants. Because, well, there's an old saying in metaphysics that the chart of a saint is impossible to read. By that it means when you become enlightened, you rise above your horoscope and become a mover in the chess game rather than a pawn. And your chart doesn't fit you at all. Helen Keller's chart does not show travel, money, fame, but she rose above it. And when you rise above your chart, you're under the law of instant karma, and your chart doesn't apply to you any more than anybody's chart applies to you, because you're free of that influence, because you have tuned in to your higher self and you're out of the karmic playpen.
Right, so you can transcend your chart, but you have to do it on a spiritual path. You can't do it just by forcing yourself to do it.
No, you have to do all kinds of good little things, to get there. But actually, you see that thing about the chart, well, then there's another thing. Old knowledge, easily gained, is new knowledge. I'm sorry, may I correct myself?
Sure.
New knowledge, easily gained, is old knowledge, which is what explains prodigies,
mm-hmm.
And so on. But climbing out of that karmic playpen is why I say to people, and it always shocks them, you must learn astrology yourself. And the reason for learning astrology is to trash it, to forget it, mm-hmm. to drop it. You first have to learn it, and then you get rid of it. I mean, you don't need it anymore.
In other words,
once
it's a tool. It's a means to an end, but it's not the end in itself.
And then you get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you learn it so that you can discard it, which sounds like a non sequitur
mm-hmm.
or contradiction, but it's not true. Learn it so you can discard it, because if you don't learn it, you can't discard it. And the funny thing is that the less a person believes in astrology, the more accurate their horoscope is. Mm-hmm. If somebody comes up to me and says, I don't believe in astrology at all, And I said, did you break your third toe on your left foot when you were 4 years old? And they go, what? You know, the less they believe in it, you see why. The more accurate their horoscope is because they're in that karmic playpen. When someone believes it and studies it, you can't hardly read their horoscope. That, again, the chart of a saint is impossible to read.
Right, I always thought of all the 12 signs as like divine aspects, in that we weren't our sun sign. We were learning, came into this life to integrate the sun sign into the whole, to be appropriately whatever it was at appropriate times, but also say appropriately Aries when it's necessary to be Aries, and appropriately Taurus, and to be balanced, but even to be more than the sum total.
You have to at least have 12 incarnations, if not many hundreds, thousands more, but at least 12, because you have to go through the experience of the 12 signs and learn to develop the positive side of that sign rather than the negative, which they all have.
Right.
It's like two sides of a coin. Let's take Taurus. Taurus stubbornness turned inside out is Taurus patience.
Right.
You know, Aries impulsiveness turned inside out is Aries courage, so on and so forth. So when you learn the good side instead of the bad side of the signs, there are 12 signs representing the 12 apostles. And every religion, Muhammad had 12 followers, Osiris had 12 followers, Buddha had 12, Jesus had 12. You see, that's the 12 sun signs. And the master is the embodiment of all 12 of those signs, the good side, the good part of the good features of all 12 signs. That's the master, the 13th. But they all have 12 followers, and they all match the 12 sun signs, and that's the reason for it.
Yeah, I think there's a book called The 12 Powers of Man that ties that in.
Well,
the
that's
different apostles with the sun signs.
Right. That's a derivation of, I've never read that. I'd be interested in it because I have my own knowing who the apostles were, but I'd like to see what someone else said.
See if it's confirmed.
Right. That's the origin of the phrase, the stars incline, they do not compel. You can rise above the stars, but you can't do it by saying, oh, I'm going to rise above it. You have to go through the necessary steps of enlightenment.
Well, I tell my clients when I use an analogy that the planetary patterns are a lot like the weather. If, some people, when it rains, they get depressed and they go inside and cancel their activities. Other people are happy because they can sell umbrellas.
Put on a raincoat and an umbrella and go anyway.
They can make money selling umbrellas. So, like how we respond to the energies have a lot to do with our makeup and our choices.
Well, yes, because the aspects in astrology, which is the predictive part that you go under, all it is energy. It doesn't matter whether it's Mars square Sun or Venus trine Jupiter, it's energy. And you always have more, there's always more than one way to channel energy. You can channel it into saying to your wife, I want a divorce. Or you can get in the car, step on the gas, ram the car into a tree. Or you can go out on the back porch and beat rugs or scrub the kitchen floor. It's only energy. It's how you channel it. So the aspects don't matter. What matters is how you respond to them.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about your view about the ethics? What is an ethical astrologer?
Well, ethical is one thing. Capable is another thing. I don't know if there are less than 1% probably of all astrologers in this country rectify a horoscope. I won't even attempt to do a chart unless I have been able to rectify it. That means discovering the exact hour and minute and second of the first breath, which is when the 40 billion brain cells are programmed like a computer at that instant, when the water-breathing creature becomes an air-breathing creature. Right. And but 9 out of 10 astrologers will not bother to rectify. They say, okay, when were you born? You say I was born at 3 in the afternoon, fine. And you might as well be getting someone else's horoscope. Rectification is very difficult and very brain-busting. It can take anywhere from 4 or 5 hours to 4 or 5 weeks, depending on how off that birth time is. It's almost never correct. It is in India and China, but over here, the baby is delivered and the nurse takes it, they wash it off, the nurse takes it back to the nursery, puts a little bracelet on, looks up at the clock,
and writes it down.
And sometimes she's had a fight with her boyfriend, she puts AM instead of PM, and You know, unless you're standing there with a stopwatch, now I'd say at least 7 times out of 10, the birth time given you is inaccurate, and it has to be rectified. So that has to do with capability. And then you get into ethics, so back to what I discussed with Patti, which is, you know, you cannot charge for a horoscope. You cannot let money change hands for spiritual wisdom on a one-to-one basis. If you are giving a lecture, if you are writing a book, it's hard work, and that's earning your bread and getting it back out of the universe. But to sit down with somebody and give them spiritual advice, well, I don't want to repeat it, but that's why all the churches were based on that. The ministers, rabbis, and priests do not take money. The church supports them. But for astrologers, they don't have any church to support them.
It'd be nice to have a roof over
so
my
they
head.
have to, yeah. So they have to do it on the side, in
that.
addition, you know, to another job. They have to moonlight and not charge. But that ethical astrologers will not charge for a horoscope, and certainly not make appointments every 2 hours. You know, if people come in, here's your reading, somebody else. It takes me, and I'm pretty experienced, it takes me, I don't know, at least a week, 8 hours a day, if not longer, to rectify, calculate, make notes, and do a reading. At least a week or two, and I obviously don't have time.
Yeah.
And so the astrologers who make an appointment, one at 2 o'clock, one at 4 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock, you're not getting anything, you know?
Right.
The main thing is do it yourself. Learn it yourself. And the only contribution I can make to that is I'm trying to get someone to fund and back a thing called RAHRAM, R-A-H-R-A-M, RAHRAM. It's a computer calculator, and only will do solar charts, not rectify. The computer can't rectify.
Okay.
But a solar chart is highly accurate as far as it goes. It just doesn't go as far as a rectified chart. So you punch in your birthday, and the window lights up with red numbers, and you look at them up in the book, the paragraphs, and it will give you a character reading, and it will give you compatibility, not just how does Aries get along with Taurus, but all the planets. You punch in the other person's birthday, it gives you compatibility with all planets against all others. Very accurate. So you can do yourself and your boyfriend, you and your parents or your children, or Ronald and Nancy Reagan, or anybody you want. And then there are certain predictive things in RAHRAM, but not the major planets to your natal sun.
Okay.
The major planets like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter to your natal sun, and they're highly reliable. And that would be the predictive part. Compatibility, predictions only through the major planets to your natal sun, and character and personality. So it'll be about 5 by 7, and just punch in, and there it is in the window, and then a book comes with it with a carrying case, and you look it up. So everybody can be their own astrologer and not make mistakes, and not send in for these computerized things, which are so general and they don't really help.
Right.
Everybody can become a safe and reliable solar astrologer, not rectification. The computer, thank God, can't do that.
Well, it's certainly a start.
It can't do that. But
and if they wish to pursue it in more
and they want to
depth,
pursue it further, then they're more familiar with it, and it'll be easier
Right.
for them to learn if they want to rectify their own chart. But you really should do your own, because you know, it's hard to find an astrologer who's totally 100% esoteric and capable and ethical.
Yeah.
Isn't easy, because
Well-
we have no colleges for it. We have no churches for it. So.
No, right now it's still to the point where if you wanted to learn astrology, you have to do it by, you know, your own sheer true grit. You know, you just don't sign up for a college and start classes.
That's right. You have to teach yourself and have enough desire to learn it.
And you still have to
So-
be relatively hard-headed, because it's still not generally accepted by the public. I mean, they like the superficial things.
Well, they
but
make it into like a fun and games kind of thing, you know. But Ronald Reagan.
Oh,
I
yes.
I didn't mean to get into the presidents, but just this one part of one president. When this thing burst out with Nancy and Ronnie and using astrology in the White House, and it's just amazing the deception that goes on, because they went through all this thing when they were interviewing. Barbara Walters was interviewing Ronnie and Nancy and all,
Right.
and saying, "Well, were you embarrassed when your wife got you into astrology?" And you know, and Nancy was, he said, "Well, I don't blame her. She was worried about her husband and all this." I just sat there and watched that because Ronald Reagan, I want to tell you people, Ronald Reagan was not dragged into astrology by Nancy. Ronald Reagan, his astrologer ever since his first film was Carol Ryder in California. And Reagan requested to be sworn in as the governor of the state of Colorado at the very odd hour of 3 minutes past midnight. Okay? And then when he was sworn in as president, he had 2 swearing-in ceremonies. One at the normal time and another one the following day at 11 p.m. or something. Rather obvious. I mean, Reagan has practiced astrology ever since he first hit Hollywood. And I sent him a telegram in 1973 telling him he would be president by 1980. I didn't mention that. And when I was on Larry King at that time, they asked, people called in with questions. And he said, you think the White House should be run with astrology? And I said, well, first of all, it depends on whether they're using an ethical astrologer, which in the Reagan's case they were not. And well, they weren't really. After what was her name, Joan Quigley,
Right.
San Francisco. Oh God, I'm going there. San Francisco. Well, she was a San Francisco socialite, and the first interview she gave after this all hit the wires, the president is using astrology. In her first interview, why did she have to do this? She said, I am an esoteric astrologer. Linda Goodman is a pop astrologer. Now, so they had an article in the California paper. It was called Star Wars. And on one side it showed her saying Linda Goodman's nothing but a pop astrologer. And on the other side it showed me saying Joan Quigley is not a spiritual astrologer. It was funny. But no, the point is I told the call-ins that, by the way, when they asked her why she didn't warn Reagan about his attempted assassination, she said, well, I have lots of clients. I don't have time to study charts that much. But anyway, what I was trying to tell you is that, wait, where was I? Astrology, Ronald Reagan, Joan Quigley.
About the fact that it hit the press and everything.
It hit the press. No, wait, I'm leaving something out here. Well, anyway, they didn't want to admit that he's been into it for many years. Oh, I know. When they called in on those talk shows I was on and said, do you think it's right for the White House to use astrology? And I said, well, this government was founded on astrology, and it shocked every caller because they don't realize, which is explained in star signs, that Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all those guys were 33rd degree Masons. They were astrologers, and they based the signing of the Declaration of Independence on astrology. They were all astrologers. The whole country was based on astrology.
If you look at the dollar bill, you see all the representations of
seal,
esoteric teachings.
All esoteric. So, the country was founded on astrology, which always shocks everybody. They don't know that. And it's amazing to me that so few people know that. They were all Rosicrucians, and 33 degree. 33 degree Mason, which, well, when you're 30, it's supposed to be a big secret, but what it really means is you have to know astrology. And they were Rosicrucians and astrologers. So, our founding fathers, they carefully picked the horoscope of the United States. If you look at the U.S. horoscope, the correct one having Gemini rising, the Gemini ascendant, it is the strongest chart I've ever seen. There's almost no negative in it. And what's there is kind of what we call powder puff negative that's easily overcome. It's the strongest horoscope you'll ever see. They made a little mistake, though. They gave us Moon in Aquarius so that we would be progressive and all that. And they gave us a Gemini ascendant, so we would be versatile as a country. But it ended up working on the opposite side of Gemini, because then we talked out of 2 sides of our mouth at once. We say freedom for all and deny the women and the Negro the vote. You know what I mean? Which is typical Gemini. Say one thing and do another. But outside of that bad Gemini ascendant, which reacted on a negative side, it's a very strong chart. Made us a Cancer country, right?
Right.
So we would have some antiquity and some background, we were new, so they wanted, background. But what happened, then we started giving chicken soup to the world, Cancer cares, Cancer care packages, all this stuff. So it's interesting, though, that astrology was the country was founded on astrology. And I think the in star signs, the part that kind of makes me cry, is the North-South polarity, why this, the Revolutionary War was the only one that broke that rule. I can't go into that now, but if you've read it, you know what I mean. It's a very interesting part.
Well, I know there's a place in the book where you talk about an individual who kept pressing forward to achievement, and he had many pitfalls and downfalls in his life, and turned out to be, as you went into it, Abraham Lincoln. And at the end, of course, he became president. My feeling is, though, like the next step would have been, and then he got shot. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, okay, Abraham Lincoln in numerology in the Chaldean alphabet, which is the only one that works, Abraham Lincoln was a 16. And 16 is pictured by the Chaldeans as the shattered citadel. A man with a crown on his head is falling from a high tower. However, that 16 single number is 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. Means the person is highly intuitive and psychic. And if they listen to the higher self, they can avoid this kind of tragedy. Lincoln had several dreams about his assassination, but refused to heed them. So anyway, that's why. But the sun signs of the presidents are really interesting.
What do you think of President Bush?
Well, first let me say, like Jimmy Carter and Eisenhower were both Librans. And the Libra smile, which will melt a chocolate bar at 20 paces. Now, how did Eisenhower and Carter win the election? With their smiles, remember? Big smiles lighting up And then we had Reagan, who's an Aquarian. We've only had 3 Aquarian presidents: Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, and Reagan. And the typical absent-minded professor, Aquarians can't remember their wife's name, they can't remember their phone number. So, I was sitting there laughing on that Contra thing, about Reagan wasn't being deceptive, he couldn't remember. He didn't know whether he signed that thing or not, And then now we have.
It wasn't a sign of old age.
Well, no, it's Aquarians, they can't remember, they introduce their wife and say, "I want you to meet my wife, honey, what's your name again?" But anyway. Reagan wasn't being deceptive. He couldn't remember whether he signed it or not. But anyway, Bush is a Gemini. Ugh. And, it's very obvious. Will the real George Bush stand up? Because he's 2 people. First he says, "I want a kinder and a gentler America." And then he comes out in favor of the gun control, about guns. And he's in favor of capital punishment, the electric chair. And he goes out and shoots deer and quail. He didn't get the right quail, but anyway.
I knew that was coming.
I mean, this is a kinder and a gentler America, right? Oh, quail, I just don't say that, but he does shoot quail a lot. But I shouldn't say things like that, not on television.
Yeah.
Not this joke going around Washington that if anyone ever tries to assassinate Bush, they
You're
told
forgiven.
the CIA, shoot quail immediately. But anyway, no, so Bush is a Gemini, and, he's 2 people, and you wonder what side he's on. But, since he was head of the CIA, you can pretty well figure what side he's on. Those are not presidents I would vote for, or would have voted for.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit for now.
I thought you were going to ask me who I wanted to be president.
All right. I was going to ask you that, but I was going to save it for the end.
Oh, all right. Save it for the end. Go ahead. No, okay,
No, go ahead now.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, you go ahead.
I'm very interested, and I'm sure a lot of people in our audience, both here in the studio and out there in the public, are interested in the idea of twin souls and twin selves. And would a chart give an indication as to what to look for in that, or is it something that is a transcendent thing, that you don't meet this person until you've transcended your chart?
The answer to that, all those questions, is within my new book, Goobers.
Okay.
All the answers to those questions are in Goobers. But yes, there are certain astrological aspects to look for twin selves and for twin souls. They're not the final answer, but there are astrological aspects.
It isn't as simple as
for a
saying-
for a twin soul or a twin self, there has to be some aspect, negative or positive, between Saturn Saturn in the other person's chart, either way or both. Saturn has to be involved. It's the planet of karma. And the surest sign of a twin self is Pluto in one chart, tightly conjunct Venus in the other chart. In the charts of lovers, not friends or business associates, but in the chart of lovers. And then Neptune and the Sun must be favorably aspected, things like that.
Okay.
But Guber's pretty much defines that. But there is a difference, and you won't know until you read Guber's what a twin soul is compared to a twin self. You have at least 12, 14 twin souls. You only have one twin self. And it's hard to explain that. You can't do it this way. You have to read the book with the diagrams and all that. But everybody has one out there somewhere.
And hopefully we're still to meet that person and we haven't blown it already, right?
Well, until you do, there won't be peace on earth. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, you know, until you fit the pieces together like this. This goes here, and this goes over here. And, you know, if you keep going like this with your hand and messing up the pieces, that's what promiscuity is. But only when every single piece is fitted exactly where it goes, you know, all twin selves get together, will there be peace on earth. Lovers don't cause wars. Sadat was a happily married man. Romeo and Juliet stopped a war, the Montagues and the Capulets. You know, people who are in love, who are really love each other, don't start wars, don't fight.
So it's kind of like the idea when two or more are gathered.
Yeah, exactly. And when all twin selves are joined, the original halves, then there will be peace on earth. So there couldn't be a greater quest, mission, or goal than the quest to find your own twin self. And love signs kind of made it a little easier, and then Guber's tells you more how to find your own twin self, how to do this. And that's the greatest thing you could teach, because until it happens, there will not be peace on earth. Okay?
Okay. About Osiris and Isis, I've been to Egypt recently and got in a little bit into studying the myth. And the person that led the tour, his name is Doug Benjamin. He does research in the ancient Egyptian wisdom as it pertains to medicine, which you seem to be very interested in also, the medical aspects of astrology. Was talking about the two, Isis and Osiris, being the masculine and feminine principles of the heart. And that Set, the brother of Osiris, is the principle of fermentation, and the idea that the Egyptians had was anything that ferments in the body keeps you from God, whether it be anger, which separates you apart, or just eating the wrong food combinations. And so he gets into what's called food combining. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little about the principle of Set, perhaps in terms of medical astrology.
What you just said is metaphysically sound and a true and excellent analogy, symbolically, yes, definitely.
And also the idea of, I think, like conventional medicine as it is, the cut and paste aspect as being 90% of our medical care.
Yeah.
I've been in body work for a while, and I feel like at this time it's best to stay away from the medical profession to attack them in a large scale, because I feel like it's representative of a dying dog. It might have been who's been hit by a car. He might have been your best friend 5 minutes ago, but now he's lashing out with his teeth because he's in his death throes. And I think the conventional medicine is being challenged by the public and
well, someday they'll call this the dark ages of medicine, you know. But more and more physicians are turning holistic. You know, and
they don't
getting away
ask
from
a person
this
where
nonsense.
they are in their life.
Yeah. I mean, you know, everybody's worried about dying from nuclear holocaust and radiation. And you should go to the hospital and get radiation.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to wait for the cataclysm, just go to the hospital.
Or 50 minutes.
Like one woman the other day, a thyroid, they treated her with radiation, and they gave her a little too much and called her up and said, oops, sorry, gave you 10 times as much as you should have had. She had 4 small children. Within one day, all 4 children were radiated, and then they had to put her in the hospital and her husband in a hotel room and the children with relatives while they took 2 weeks to try to get the radiation out of the house. And now she won't live long, and she won't be there to see her children go to college. And some lawyer wanted to get her $12,000 compensation, and the hospital said, look, anybody can make a mistake. They don't want to pay it. little things like that. But they get chemotherapy, antibiotics. Antibiotics, I won't even tell you what they do to your body. You know, everything they use that's artificial to treat human beings kill more than they cure. They may cure something, but they kill you. You know, you don't die of cancer. You die of radiation. You die of starvation. What they do, I just can't imagine how people are so afraid of nuclear warfare, go in and take radiation. It's just crazy. And they also don't comprehend that the body, that's in Goobers, the mind and the soul are a holy trinity, and they cannot be separated. So they have the ministers and the priests will treat the soul, right? The doctors treat the body, and the psychiatrists treat the mind. And those holy three cannot be separated. When you fall ill in any one of them, the other two will swiftly follow. And if you heal any one of them, the other two will swiftly be healed. And they are inseparable, you know? So the medical profession doesn't understand that at all. But they have a few doctors breaking through. What's that one?
Bernie Siegel?
Bernie Siegel is
Dr.
breaking
Dossi.
through. Yes, right. They're breaking through in popularity with their books and telling laughter cures, you know, love heals.
I think Bernie Siegel said that you may not cure the disease, but it's important to heal your life, which is the all-inclusive.
Well, see, the trouble with those people is they've gone this far in enlightenment, but not this far, because they're wrong. If you can heal one, the other will heal. The other two will heal. You can't avoid that. But see, they'll go this far, but they don't go that far because they don't comprehend the whole truth. But at least doctors are going in that direction. And I have a friend where they let her in New York, allowed her recently to go into surgery with a purple plate, and what magic happened in there, and the doctors had been so impressed with what it had done for her in 2 days that they let her take it in the surgical, you know, in with her for the surgery. The purple plate's written about in star signs. And at my lecture, February 3rd, where is it?
Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall. There will be purple plates available there. So if anybody wants to, you know, buy a purple plate, they're very reasonable, $10 for a magic wand that will do anything. And what purple plates do is written about in star signs in the section called Purple Plates for Purple Leprechauns. And it's unbelievable what they do. You have to read that chapter, and you can get them at the lecture. You can write in for them, or they'll be at the lecture. Ralph Bergstresser's plates. And but you know, things like that, the doctors in Canada now and hospitals in Canada are using purple plates. They bring down everything.
It's interesting.
I'm trying to think the last two things they found out in Canada. Well, the whole Aquarian age, the whole New Age is full of New Age medicine. There are many roads to Rome, as they say. Many ways to heal, many ways to cure, and they're not with chemicals, not with anything artificial.
Well, Hippocrates, the father of medicine for the Hippocratic Oath, was an advocate of astrology.
I keep telling him well, that's in Goobers. There's a chapter in there where I say that these men, you know, how can they say that astrology is you know, you just laugh at it. When their own founding father, they take the Hippocratic Oath, was an astrologer. And in his diary, Hippocrates wrote, "He who practices medicine without the benefit of the stars and planets is a fool." No pussyfooting around there. He made it pretty clear. You know, I mean, that's the father of medicine, right? But they don't. I don't know. It's the wheel turns. You know, first they go over. You know, humans go overboard with occultism in a negative way and abuse it, and then they get very straight and scientific.
Right, it scares them because
and they're against everything. Then they turn the other way, and right now it's happening. This New Age stuff is turning the other way, too hard, too fast. All this New Age stuff, you know.
it's entered into the realm of material.
Yeah, they have the little booths outside in the New Age fair. Step right up, get your crystal. Step right up, it's like Jesus at the temple. You know, the whole New Age thing is being overdone, over commercialized, over. You know, it's not. It's tacky, and it's not individual, deep, profound knowing. It's tacky.
I think there's a distinct difference in it seemed to be two types of individuals, one seeking truth and the other seeking power.
Or a fad.
Yeah. What is it, do you know, what is it that sparks a person to seek higher things? Is it an innate thing that is in everyone and then some people block it? Or is there an influence that comes in that some people are just cut out for it? Or, how do you feel about that?
Don't you think that
Some people are still asleep, and
don't you think that deep sadness and tragedy trigger it most of the time? When
So-
people are lost and they see no point in waking up in the morning, no point in life, no point in existence at all. That usually is what triggers a curiosity. What's it all about? What's
when
it all
everything
about?
is going well, no one seems to
When
wanna-
things are going well, they don't really wonder where they came from or where they're going.
Well, with the way the
Yeah.
world is right now, and the fabric of the structure of our society and governments and everything is quickly falling apart, kind of like a Neptune thing, a dissolution, and yet it's a time of crisis, and yet it seems like this is a great opportunity for the light to burst forth. Would you say that this is a time when a lot of people are going to start turning to higher things because of
Definitely.
the insecurities of the old way passing away?
Absolutely, but it's there's the New People magazine, the one with Drew Barrymore on the cover, has an article about Aspen, Colorado, about Catherine Thalberg and her husband, Bill Sterling. Catherine is the daughter of Norma Shear and Irving Thalberg. If you watch the Oscars, they give the Thalberg Award and all that. And she's a friend of mine. She's a really special person. Not a close friend, but, I've been in Aspen, autograph signings, and we've gone to lunch, and we became very friendly in a few days' time. But anyway, the article in People is talking about Catherine and her husband, Bill Sterling, who's the mayor of Aspen, have this thing. It comes up February 13th, and I have to call her and see how I can be of help, where they're going to ban the sale of fur in Aspen. And they've been publishing photographs of the animals caught in these traps, and blood gushing out and all the pain and anguish. And so they're trying to ban fur. And, that movement started about a year ago all over America, like, don't wear fur, And so they're going to have a vote on it with 3,000 so many citizens of Aspen on February 13th. So Catherine said even if they lose the vote, at least they will have made people think. But the people against it, there are 4 stores in Aspen. They sell fur coats. And they take ads in the paper against it, against this vote coming up. But one of them said, first cigarettes, then fur, then leather, then meat. And I went, right on, right. We'll finally be enlightened, So
We'll vote for
first
that.
we lose this, then we lose that, But the animal rights activists are dear to my heart. I mean, if people wonder why humans have this karma because of the way they treat their animal brothers and sisters, it's cosmetic companies,
It's sad that a law
car
has to be
companies put a
passed.
monkey there and let him crash into a wall to see.
It's sad that a law has to be passed, that it
Yeah.
isn't just a consciousness that...
Right, but it's happy to me that there are so many people, not just me or not just you. You say to yourself, I've always known this, but now people everywhere are starting to realize, hey, we shouldn't do this. This is not good. This is evil. This hurts. I have a sticker on my refrigerator that says every fur coat hurts. But, people are becoming aware that animals, we're here to protect them. They're our brothers and sisters. We're not here to torture them and give them agony. And metaphysically, if you wear fur or leather, which came, of course, you can't tell whether the animal just died or whether it was murdered, but 9 times out of 10 it was murdered, that, when you put next to you skin which is saturated with the vibrations of agony, pain, and anguish, it's going to
You add that
affect
to
you
your own
and
heart.
even wipe out some of the good in your horoscope because it's going to make you start vibrating that way. You can't go against the law of magnetism. And you can't,
It's
and when you
interesting.
put meat in your body, which, it's butchered flesh, saturated with pain and agony and knocking a cow on the head without an anesthetic and cutting its stomach while it's still conscious. Anyone who ever visited a meat packing house or
Right.
what they have in
Slaughterhouse.
Chicago, slaughterhouse, would never touch meat again, because cured meat, when they say it's cured, it's rotten. It means it's rotten. It's like take a person, hang them up, let them get rotten, and then eat them. They're cured. To put butchered flesh in your body will really mess it up, especially butchered flesh that came from the agony and pain of a creature dying like that. And metaphysically, it's very bad. So let's don't get into leather, because I have to find out a substitute for these. Because I do, my Indian moccasins I don't wear anymore. I'm wearing little canvas shoes instead. But what do you do about dress shoes? You know, and so you have to sit and say, I hope this animal died a natural death. But you know, you go as far as you can go. You don't want to be a hypocrite. But I used to eat hamburgers like crazy, you know?
Right,
I mean, cheeseburgers, I didn't think anything was wrong with it till I started realizing. And when the realization hits and the light bulb goes on, you can't do it, because you know what it means.
Yeah.
But you know, innocently, if you're raised that way, okay, I have a cheeseburger and a Coke. You know, you don't. Innocence. You're still innocent, and you can be forgiven. But once you're enlightened and you know, and you feel it, and you sense it, and you know within, and you still do it, that's not such a good thing.
Yeah.
Are you vegetarian?
I'm
Getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go in and out of it, and
Yeah, you
and-
do that.
and
Like once in a while, I have bacon and say, I hate myself. You know, that poor pig. But
it's
I
a
think
struggle for us all. I mean,
Yes, everyone
it's our
struggles.
attunement that we're working.
it's a matter of knowing what's right and wrong. And if you slip up now and then, fine, you go back on the path again. You know,
It's not how many times you fall down, it's how quick you get back up.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
a very good phrase. Exactly.
So I'm sympathetic to that myself, and I'm sure a good part of our audience is, and I think by sharing that, probably a few more will become aware. Now I wanted to ask you one more question before we go to the audience and see what kind of questions they have. Who do you see? Who would you like to see as president?
Yeah, I think there are only two men on this planet who are worthy for me to vote for as president, and neither one of them would make it. They get murdered before they got there. And that's Ralph Nader and Mikhail Gorbachev. There's only two people on this planet I think I'd ever vote for. There's a letter from me to Ralph Nader in Goobers, which is kind of amusing. Gorbachev, I just wish I could request everyone who's watching this television show, I'd like to ask them all a favor, please. It won't hurt you to do it. Please, every single night when you go to sleep, every night, ordain your higher self to protect Gorbachev. If he is assassinated, the world is in a lot of trouble. And Marilyn, someone named Marilyn out there in the audience walked up for me to sign her book and asked me if I thought Gorbachev was a walk-in. And I said, I not only think it, I know it. And not only that, but I have evidence in my own personal life of it. And I have a very intimate reason for feeling very close to Gorbachev. He didn't achieve this power, this charm, this, not charm, what am I trying to say, this power over people so that they're almost hypnotized by him accidentally. He wasn't like that until about 5 years ago. And Gorbachev can almost make people think what he wants them to think. And since he came into this aspect, when was it, about 4 or 5 years ago, what's happened? The whole world is changing. Mm-hmm. The entire world is changing.
Absolutely.
We need him
In the
desperately.
wink of an eye.
He even, Reagan was calling Russia the evil empire. Gorbachev charmed him right out of that. The same with Bush, our wonderful former head of the CIA. People line up in New York. My son Michael told me he'd never seen anything like it. They called it Gorby Day. Lindbergh, even Kennedy. There has never been an American president or an entertainer, including the Beatles, including Kennedy, ever that had the crowds that turned out in New York City for Gorbachev screaming, Gorby, 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 cheering. Wait, but where's it come from? I mean, this is a Russian leader. All of a sudden everybody is worshipful. And beyond anything that's ever happened, beyond anything. And you would understand that if you knew who's controlling Gorbachev and who he is. He's, I mustn't say that, very, very, very high avatar. And people are, they can't resist him. He doesn't have a single enemy except the evil people within his own, government. Mm-hmm. But nowhere. I mean, he just looks at them and they all of a sudden melt into they almost fall down on their knees and
Yeah, it seems like there are some
Even the
people.
Pope can't resist him,
Yeah, there are some people in our government who have a vested interest in Russia being bad, and they're working overtime to keep trying to maintain that idea and that image. And
But they
Gorbachev,
can't.
They can't.
They can't fight him. They can't.
Right.
He has power beyond, really beyond description. And so pray, please, everybody, when you go to bed every night, pray for Gorbachev. If we lose him, well, come to think of it, I don't think he can prevent that if he wants.
The divine with
He
capital D.
he can prevent assassination.
Right, keeps up.
It's just that I've had a lot of letters from psychics who tell me this is going to happen, and I thought, no, I know who he is. I know a lot of things about him, and he can stop that if he wants. He has power over that. But then again, who knows about the general karma, what's going to happen.
Right.
But anyway, he and Ralph Nader. See, it was funny, Mrs. Nader was on a Johnny Carson or some television show, and she's a typical Jewish, Yiddish mama, Jewish housewife, and they were asking him, asking her about Ralph, because, he's never had a date with a girl, and he's not, gay. I mean, they can't find any he just isn't interested, he just has his mission. So they were asking Mrs. Nader, aren't you proud of your son? And she was so funny, she said, well, I just wish Ralph would find a nice Jewish girl and settle down. But anyway, Ralph Nader and Gorbachev are the only pure people on this planet, huh?
Maybe he will when his work is done.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He doesn't flirt with it. That's in Goobers. There's a funny letter to him about how he doesn't wink at the earthlings in the auditoriums. I guess you think your mission is more important than a fast tumble in the hay with a pretty chick,
Channels it to
I'm going to have to send him the book and mark that chapter. It's a love letter to Ralph Nader. It starts out, dear Mr. Nader, I love you. I would vote for you for dog catcher, president, pope. Anyway.
Are there any women that you see as being potentials for public leaders at this point? No?
Nope. I think Eleanor Roosevelt would have been. She's not around anymore.
Yeah.
She's one I thought had great potential for that kind of thing. No. Do you?
Well,
who would it be?
Maybe yourself.
Oh, God. An Aries? We have had one Aries president, and that was Thomas Jefferson. And Tom Dewey didn't make it. He was an Aries. And the reason we could never have an Aries president is because Aries people cannot go along with all these political deals. They're going to tell it like it is, and they're going to be direct, and they're going to, nobody could make an Aries do it. So what's his name, McCarthy? Not the one with the McCarthy hearings, he's the other one. Eugene McCarthy was running for president, and he's an Aries. You all remember that, I hope, Eugene McCarthy. All my friends called me and said, Linda, astrology cannot be accurate. Eugene McCarthy is an Aries, and he's so soft-spoken, and he's so gentle, and he goes on television, he has these discussions, very gentle, very soft-spoken. He recites poetry. How could he possibly be an Aries? And I kept saying, wait. So then they call up on the next TV. Did you see him last night? He recited 3 poems, and he was in a discussion or a debate, and he was so gentle and soft-spoken, he didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He can't possibly be an Aries. And I kept saying, wait. So one day, I opened the New York Times, and there was a big headline. It says, Eugene McCarthy says, when I'm elected president, I will fire J. Edgar Hoover immediately. So it was an Aries. He didn't make it, did he, to the White House? So Aries people are too naive and idealistic and direct, and, We haven't had one Sag president either. Sagittarius tells it like it is.
Well, I'm not running, but...
Oh, God, Sagittarius. But
I'd be in trouble in no time.
You put your foot in your mouth the first day. Gosh, I can see that. No, there are certain signs that we've had, mostly Capricorn, Scorpios, Pisces, Capricorn, Scorpios, Pisces, Cancer. I have to look more of them, and Libra. Yeah. But, only one Aries. And I think only one Sag. Mm-hmm. So, see, we're just too honest. We can't play this little game,
Barbara Marx Hubbard, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She ran during the Mondale election, when Mondale was running. She did her own campaign on advocating the world peace and that kind of thing. She was running for vice president all by herself. I don't know what her sign was, but she's a person who's real interesting, a real visionary.
I don't
And
know
her name's
about
gonna
her. I'd
come
like
up
to
more
know
and
more about her, but I don't. Just want to say on air, see, Aries is called the benevolent dictator. You know, like if any Aries would be president, you know, me or anybody, you know, you don't give the people what they want. You give the people what you think they should have, and they'll take it or else. You know, like I would put all drunk drivers in prison for 20 years, take their car away, and probably put them in the electric chair. You know, I mean, I don't fool around. You know, I mean, this is what we're going to do. But
Be advised.
the benevolent dictator, right? Well, Khrushchev was an Aries, and everybody was so afraid of him. Of course, Jack Kennedy, being a Gemini, got along with him very well. And we'll go to the audience, but I want to just say this, that when, you remember when he banged his shoe on the table at UN? You know, everybody was, Jim, all remember that? Didn't scare me. Oh, he was an Aries. He was saying, I want you to pay attention to me. Nobody's listening to me now. Listen to what I'm saying. You know, so it didn't scare me. And afterwards, he went outside and burst into tears because he found out that his schedule would not permit him to go to Disneyland.
Oh.
So who could be afraid of Khrushchev? You know? I mean, really.
Well, let's have some questions from the audience.
Anybody have a question?
In discussing vegetarians, Linda, I was with a group of vegetarians last week, and we had a roundtable discussion, and their thoughts are, with the New Age group, that there's only two types of vegetarians, and that's the type that eat absolutely no meat and those that eat some dairy products. And my question to you is, say 20 or 30 years, when the American public was just hearing about being a vegetarian, wasn't one source of vegetarianism persons that ate only chicken and fish, which was not considered meat? You know, like the Catholics ate fish on Fridays because it wasn't meat. Is that not one form of vegetarianism?
What's your first name?
Sandra.
Sandra, if you read in Star Signs the chapter about vegetarianism, it will explain that it has to be done at certain levels, you know, and it takes 7 years. And you can't just suddenly become a vegetarian because the sins of the father visit upon the children. Your genes are from meat eaters, you know, your parents, your grandparents. Read that chapter because there's several steps going to beef and chicken and fish and dairy products and all that. It takes, I think it's 7 years, but read that in Star Signs. It will answer all your questions. And then you become a breatharian. And you don't need to become part of the food chain. You don't need to kill life in order to sustain life. And then after you become a breatharian, which you have to become before you can break down your molecules and travel to other solar systems and back, you can go back, go off being a breatharian, meaning getting everything you need from the air you breathe. But God, not the polluted air. In Cripple Creek, maybe. But you go back to being, you get off that and eat fruit. Fruit is not food. Fruit is a cleanser. It cleanses the body. You eat fruit to cleanse. And then you can become a breatharian because it's a fallacy to think that your muscles and your blood and things in your body, in order to be replenished and grow, have to have food. They do not. They're capable of running their own factory without any help. The Essene Gospel of Christ, do you know that book?
I'm familiar with
The
it.
Essene Gospel of Jesus. Read that, and it'll explain how you can. Well, it's very clear about becoming a breatharian in that it's the New Testament, but what really Jesus said, not what they distorted. So anyway, there are several stages, and it takes 7 years. You can't just suddenly do it. Okay?
I have one other question, please. And that's in regard to cancer that you were discussing earlier. And like you, I agree that radiation is the worst treatment for cancer. And I'm very glad to be here today because I'm enjoying your wealth of knowledge. And I'd like to ask, what would you suggest as treatment? I mean, no one knows whether they're going to go through life healthy or whether they're going to get a dreaded disease like cancer, what would you suggest as an alternative treatment?
Well, they have, children are the wisest people on the planet, and they've cured many cases of terminal cancer in children by just telling them to image a ray gun like in the cartoons and zap down these cells, and the children do, and they get well. And there are many alternative treatments. I cannot say right now in the air, but there are people I know in California and Colorado who are curing terminal cancer like this using herbs. But with children, they do it with images. Just take a little gun and shoot those cells down. Cancer cells can grow and they can reduce. Any kind of illness can be healed with love. There is no disease that enough love cannot heal. There just isn't. And it all comes from the mind. And you can cure yourself. I know I have 2 friends who cured themselves of terminal cancer. And by going home and going on strictly fruit juice and vegetable juice and megadoses of vitamin E and vitamin C and changing their thought process. In other words, you can cure cancer by changing the diet and changing the thoughts. And how do you change your thoughts? The books you read. And changing your diet at the same time. Cancer is no more serious than a common head cold. My twin self knows that. He's a marine biologist. He's the one about whom the book Goobers was written. And it's not serious at all. You can cure it in 30 to 90 days by a change of thought and a change of diet. You see, cancer doesn't kill, Sandra. Cancer doesn't kill. The fear of cancer kills. John has cancer. 72 relatives and friends. Oh my God, did you hear John had cancer? They image him in his casket. And the mind is very powerful. Sends out those vibes and John obliges, he ends up in the casket. That's why I want to get those bumper stickers to make people think no one ever died of undiagnosed cancer. Think about that.
Well, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.